WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been freed from Belmarsh Prison in the UK and is expected to plead guilty to a US espionage charge tomorrow morning, which could allow him to return home to Australia. Court papers suggest Mr Assange is set to plead guilty to one charge on the island of Saipan, a US jurisdiction north of Guam. North America correspondent Carrington Clarke joins us now from Washington. Carrington, take us through what we know.
Well, what we know comes primarily through these court documents that have been lodged in the US territory of Northern Mariana Islands. And it's there that we believe Julian Assange is on his way to plead guilty to this single felony count. And that is for unlawfully obtaining and disseminating classified information relating to the national defence of the United States. So this is a single felony count that he's pleading guilty to, and there will not be additional jail time in the United States. Instead, the 62 months that he spent in UK prisons will count for that sentence. That particular charge comes with a potential maximum of 10 years, but the 62 months that he served in the UK prison system will be enough for that particular charge, and then we believe Julian Assange will make his way home. So he's currently on a flight. WikiLeaks, the organisation that he founded and the organisation that released this trove of classified US defence and other types of documents relating to their military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, has released a series of messages on social media, on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, one of which is a video which appears to show Julian Assange leaving the United Kingdom. He has been released from the prison, and he's now, we believe, on a plane on his way to Saipan, which is in the Northern Mariana Islands. Now, this is a territory of the United States. It's called a Commonwealth, but it is somewhat, has some autonomy compared to, say, the United States states. Excuse me, and that's an important factor because Julian Assange has always said that he was concerned about his liberty and his life if he was actually to return to the US proper. So this seems to have been an agreement that's been reached between his legal team and the United States to bring him to Saipan and then to return to Australia. And so Saipan, the Northern Mariana Islands, it's almost directly north of Townsville, which is where Julian Assange was born. And importantly, it's in the same time zone. So we believe that he will be appearing in court at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. So that will be the same as Australian Standard Time. But this looks to be the final chapter, at least, of Julian Assange's jail time in relation to these particular matters, and it does look like he'll be returning to his family in Australia shortly.
Carrington, this has been such a drawn-out case. Has it come as a surprise, this development today?
I think it is no surprise that an agreement has been reached. That seemed to be the way that this particular matter was heading in recent months. We've seen increasing diplomatic pressure coming from the Australian government, and this has been an issue that has been raised with US politicians repeatedly, particularly in the last few months. And it does appear that there had been a change of tone coming from the US administration. This has been a very complicated case. Julian Assange has many strong supporters who believe that he has been persecuted for journalism. This is the argument from his supporters, that this is a test of the US's adherence to the First Amendment, the right to publish information. His detractors say that he is not a journalist, that he didn't do enough to try to protect these sources, and that he released these documents without due consideration. But what we've seen is this kind of growing consensus, I would argue, among the different political groups here in the United States, that this issue had to be brought to a head. Now, although he spent 62 months in the UK prison system, this has really been going on since these classified documents were released. He also spent 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. This has been a protracted fight, and I think it's fair to say that the administration, the Biden administration, wanted this brought to a close. The questions have been repeatedly asked of the administration here, but also of Donald Trump, who's running for president. And although it was under his administration that the original indictments were brought against Julian Assange, he has suggested that he would give serious consideration to pardoning Julian Assange. And then RFK Jr., who is running as a third-party candidate, has suggested that he would fully pardon Julian Assange. So this seems to have been brought to a close. It was a diplomatic sore point between the Australian government, who's made it clear that they wanted to see action taken. They wanted to see this matter resolved, and the US government, and it does appear now that an agreement has been reached. Obviously, these things are never certain until the agreement has been completely sealed, but avoiding some sort of snag in these last few hours, really, you would think that this is all going to come to a close, and that Julian Assange will be returned to Australia.
And Carrington, alongside that quiet diplomacy from our government, we know that there has been loud, unwavering support from Julian Assange's family, from friends, supporters, journalists, legal professionals, all the way along.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have heard today from his mother and father. Christine Assange released a statement saying that she's grateful that her son's ordeal is finally coming to an end. This shows the importance and power of quiet diplomacy. Many have used my son's situation to push their own agendas, so I'm grateful to those unseen, hardworking people who put Julian's welfare first. Mr Assange's father, John Shipton, has actually spoken to ABC Victorian Mornings, and he said that he was still anxious to see whether or not the news reports were, as he put it, sincere, and said that he'd been watching all morning since the news first broke to see what the updates were. So this has obviously had a huge amount of impact on Julian Assange's immediate family. He also has two children who have never known life with their father as a free man. Julian Assange's role, his standing among the journalistic community will be something that will be debated continuously, even after this comes to an end. But this does seem to have put to an end what has been one of the most protracted legal battles Australia has perhaps ever seen. It's been over multiple continents, involved multiple governments. He has fought this bitterly through the court system in the UK, and it does appear that an agreement now has been reached. But obviously the question will be how this will now be represented by Julian Assange himself and also by the US government.